If you open a Facepunch support ticket about Rust on console, Facepunch will reject it. Their knowledge base says it plainly. Facepunch doesn't offer support for the Rust console edition. The game is purely supported and developed by Double 11. Same brand name on the box, a different company on the other end of the line. The real question is how that became the official answer, and whether it was an accident or the product architecture from the start. Facepunch began creating Rust in 2013. After early testing as a browser game, they put it on Steam in early access in December 2013. 4 years later, on January 22nd, 2018, Gary Newman wrote the announcement players had been waiting for. In his own words, after over 4 long years, Rust is leaving early access. The plan was February 8th, 2018. That date stuck. Facepunch's own games page still lists December 2013 as first released and February 2018 as commercial release. For years, Rust lived as a self published PC live service. Facepunch shipped the updates. Facepunch ran the conversation. The game was already hard on high end PCs, large player counts, player built worlds, systems that scaled with whoever upgraded their hardware. Console looked like a different problem entirely, a fixed memory budget and no endless upgrade path for the player. That gap is why Double 11 later measured the port in hard numbers. Steam's minimum for Rust was 10 gigabytes of RAM, with 16 recommended. The target consoles, after the operating system and shared graphics, had just 4.5 gigabytes. Early load times on console, Double 11 later said, ran up to 45 minutes. They brought that down to around 1 minute, give or take. Getting there meant ripping apart and rewriting major engine subsystems inside Unity, and choosing a point in Facepunch's codebase that felt safe enough to build on, rather than trying to drag every recent PC edition across at once. Double 11 did not show up in 2021 with a surprise port. Lead programmer Matt Phillips later said they first started talking to Facepunch in 2016 about the idea of creating a console version of Rust and how that could work. Talks began back in 2016. Development didn't start until June 2018. There was a lot to evaluate before any tangible development work started. Following those conversations and an internal evaluation, they didn't actually start development until 2018 because of the challenges in that evaluation phase, making sure they could deliver a fun, unique, high quality Rust experience for console players. The public face of the project arrived on November 14th, 2019 at Microsoft's X019 in London. Polygon reported the same day that Rust would finally make its way to consoles in 2020, announced during the live stream kicking off the show. A news release from Facepunch and publisher Double 11 said Rust on consoles would support worlds of up to 100 players. Cosmo Cover's contemporaneous write-up put the same frame on it, announced at X019, console release next year. That 2020 window did not hold. On December 7th, 2020, Double 11 published a delay update. IGN quoted the apology line from that post. "We're sorry that we haven't been able to bring you Rust on console in 2020 as planned." IGN later summarized the slip as delayed into 2021 due to challenges with remote working the previous year, linking back to that same Double 11 update. On March 8th, 2021, IGN reported that Double 11 had locked a spring debut on PlayStation 4 and Xbox One after an ongoing closed beta, still without a calendar date in that piece. A correction on the same article noted that an earlier version had wrongly attributed the announcement to Facepunch. The console version was being developed and published by Double 11. The rebuild story was already public by late March. On March 26th, 2021, Double 11 published Rust Console Edition, Launch and Beyond. They said Rust Console Edition was based on the PC version of the game, designed and optimized for a completely separate and unique console player experience. They repeated the 2016 origin of the talks, and they put the product decision in hardware terms. They knew early on that the two games would need to be in separate universes, given that the PC edition could expand as it needed to, while consoles had finite resources that needed to be more closely managed. The console editions would follow their own update roadmap from launch. On March 27th, 2021, IGN reported the hard date, officially coming to PlayStation 4 and Xbox One, and to PS5 and Xbox Series XS via backward compatibility, On May 21st, 2021, IGN also restated the separate experience language and the separate universe's hardware rationale, and said Console Edition would follow its own update roadmap that differs from the PC version. 2 weeks before launch, on May 14th, 2021, Double Eleven's pre-order beta post made the content split explicit. Major updates would release around 8 to 10 weeks apart from one another, and they would not follow the same timeline in terms of content as Facepunch's version of Rust. The studio said it would try to prioritize highly requested features first, but some might not make it anytime soon due to hardware limitations. The first post-launch update aimed at tech tree and gestures. The first major update was themed Power Surge, electricity, and power lines. On May 21st, 2021, Rust Console Edition launched on PS4 and Xbox One. Facepunch's games page lists console release as May 2021. Double Eleven's studio page for the product lists the developers as Double Eleven and Facepunch Studios, and the publisher as Double Eleven on Xbox One and PlayStation 4. After launch, the interviews kept the same architecture. In a June 19th, 2021 PSU interview, Matt Phillips said they knew early on that the PC and console versions would ultimately be in separate universes due to the diverse needs of the hardware. The PC version could expand as needed if people upgraded their machines. Consoles had finite resources that needed closer management. Performance was the biggest and most demanding challenge. On native next-gen, as of that interview, he said it was something they'd like to consider in the future, but not something they could commit to right then. 8 days later, on June 27th, 2021, Phillips told the TheXboxHub that Rust Console Edition was a completely separate product from the PC version. Regular content updates were planned, but it would not follow the same trajectory as the PC roadmap. Later in the same interview, he said it again, an entirely separate product with a content update roadmap that was also completely different. On crossplay, there is crossplay between console players, but not with PC, because it is a separate game and experience. And as of that interview, there were no plans to implement PC crossplay in the future. He closed the point the way Double Eleven had been saying it for months. Whilst the same core experience for console players, it is a completely separate product to its PC predecessor and should be considered as such. Years later, that structure is still the public record. Rust Console Edition news, FAQs, and support live under Double Eleven's domains, rust.double11.com and support.double11.com, not under Facepunch's PC Rust site. Double Eleven's FAQs answer who is developing Rust Console Edition with a direct line. Rust Console Edition is being published and developed by Double Eleven. Official servers are described as run by Double Eleven. Support routes go to Double Eleven channels, including support at double11.com. Facepunch's own games page names the same split. Rust Console Edition, Facepunch writes, is developed and published by Double Eleven and brings the Rust experience to Xbox Series S or X and PlayStation 5, with a link out to rust.double11.com. Double Eleven still credits Facepunch Studios beside itself as developers and lists Double Eleven alone as publisher. On May 29th, 2025, Double Eleven's dev blog 39 stayed inside that same product line. Mark your calendars. They wrote, Rust Console Edition New Gen drops on June 26th, 2025. Early access starts June 19th, 2025, and runs right up to launch day. The post frames New Gen as built from the ground up for current gen consoles, still under Double Eleven's blog and update messaging, including continued old gen update talk on their side of the fence. And the support wall that opened this story is still there. Facepunch's knowledge base article, Rust Console Edition Support, updated September 23, 2025, still says Facepunch doesn't offer support for the Rust Console Edition. It still says the Console Edition is purely supported and developed by Double Eleven. It still points players to Double Eleven's FAQs, website, support site, and Discord, and it still states that tickets to Facepunch support regarding the Console Edition will be rejected. So if you searched for who actually publishes and supports Rust on console, the primary sources land on one answer. Double Eleven ships the console product. Facepunch ships the PC product and credits the origin. The separate universes language was on the record before May 21st, 2021, and it was not invented after players noticed the roadmaps diverged. Two live services under one brand name. And in Facepunch's own support words, a rejected ticket if you send console problems to the wrong desk.